I was folding towels in the laundry room when I heard them. Their voices were hushed, but I've lived 78 years. I know the sound of people trying not to be heard. "You need to say something, Jareth," my daughter-in-law, Cassidy, whispered. Her tone was tight with that brittle impatience she always had. "Your mother can't live with us forever. She's not helping. She just takes up space." "She raised me," Cass, my son, Jareth, mumbled. "That's not the point," she snapped. "We've got bills, stress, the twins' college fund, and she just sits there all day. She's dead weight." I froze. The warm, blue towel in my hand slipped from my fingers and fell to the cold tile. Dead weight. The words echoed in the small room, louder than the hum of the dryer. My heart, which I thought was too old for such things, gave a hard, painful thud. I had lived through the Depression, a world war, and the death of my husband, Oswin. I had survived far worse than words. But some words, I learned, don't just stay. They burrow. "I heard you," I said it softly, stepping into the doorway of the kitchen. Cassidy flinched, her hand flying to her chest. Jareth turned, his eyes wide with a familiar, childish guilt. "Mom," he stammered, that's not what she meant." "It is," I said, my voice as flat and folded as the towels I'd left behind. "You just didn't think I'd be listening." They said nothing. The silence in their $1 million kitchen was deafening. I turned, walked back into the laundry room, picked up the fallen towel, and finished folding the stack with hands that suddenly would not stop shaking. That night at dinner, the tremor was worse. My arthritis had been cruel lately, and as I tried to lift my glass of water, the bowl of my spoon clattered against the porcelain. "Seriously, Maribel?" Cassidy hissed, not even looking up from her phone. "Can you do anything right?" I felt the heat rise in my cheeks. I looked to my son, the boy I taught to ride a bike and tie his shoes. Jareth just sighed, his eyes glued to his own screen, and pushed his green beans around his plate. He didn't defend me. He didn't tell his wife to be kind. He said nothing. And in that moment, his silence was a slap far harder than any hand. It was the moment I realized he wouldn't just let her call me a burden, he believed it, too. I excused myself, my dinner untouched. I walked up the plushly carpeted stairs to my guest room and locked the door. I didn't cry. Crying was a luxury I couldn't afford. Instead, I knelt, with some difficulty, and pulled a small, locked metal box from under my bed. The key was on a chain around my neck, where it had been for 5 years. I opened it. Inside, beneath my late husband's purple heart, was a single, thick, trifolded document. A legal document. A promise. And a weapon. They thought she was powerless, but they forgot who held the real power. I looked at the document, the crisp, heavy paper a stark contrast to the trembling of my hands. It was a promissory note. My mind drifted back 5 years, to a different kind of pain. My husband, Oswin, had just passed. The silence of our little brick house, the one he built the porch swing for, was deafening. The smell of his pipe tobacco had faded, and all I had left were memories and a small, but secure, life insurance policy. I was planning a quiet retirement, maybe some gardening, when Jareth and Cassidy had come to me, their faces pale with panic. They were living in a tiny apartment, drowning in student debt, and Cassidy was pregnant with their first child, Calla. "Mom," Jareth had said, holding my hands, "we're losing it. The dream house." The bank, they denied the loan. It was a beautiful new construction, far more than they could afford, but it was in a perfect school district. "We're short on the down payment, Mom," Cassidy had cried, actual tears streaming down her face. "And our credit, it's just, we'll lose our deposit. We'll lose everything." I looked at my son, my only child. I saw the desperation in his eyes, the same look he'd had when he was 7 and broke Mrs. Gable's window. I thought of Oswin. "Family takes care of family," he always said. So, I made a decision. I sold my house. The house with the porch swing, the house where I'd raised Jareth, the house where Oswin and I had danced in the kitchen. I sold it all. I gave them the money. Not just the down payment, all of it. $450,000. Enough to buy their dream house outright. Mom, you've saved us. Jareth had wept, hugging me so tightly I thought my ribs would crack. Of course, you'll live with us. We'll have a beautiful suite for you. We'll be a family. Their gratitude lasted about 6 months. The beautiful suite became the small guest room by the laundry when they decided they needed a home office. My pension, which I'd offered to contribute for groceries, slowly became an expectation, a fee for my presence. And I, believing in the goodness of my son, let it happen. I faded into the background, becoming the unpaid nanny, the silent cook, the invisible woman folding towels. But Oswin had been a practical man. Love is good, Maribel, he'd told me a month before he passed, but a contract is better. He knew our son was kind, but weak. He knew Cassidy was ambitious. Before I gave them a dime, I had my lawyer, Trina, draft this note. It wasn't a gift. It was a loan. A private mortgage, with 0% interest, payable in full upon my death, or, as Trina had insisted on adding, if at any time the lender, Maribel Hatcher, is asked to vacate the property or is made to feel unwelcome. I ran my thumb over the signature line. Jareth's hurried, sloppy signature. He had signed it without even reading, so eager to get the money. He'd forgotten. But I hadn't. They voided the contract. Now, Maribel is about to collect. I slept that night, truly slept, for the first time in years. The decision had settled me. The next morning, I rose before the sun, showered, and put on my Goodwill dress, the one I'd worn to my husband's funeral. I made my way downstairs, the folded document heavy in my dress pocket. They were already in the kitchen, whispering. The air was thick with their conspiracy. As I entered, they fell silent. Cassidy was sipping her latte, and Jareth was pretending to read the news on his tablet. On the granite island, between them, sat a stack of glossy brochures. I didn't need to read the cover to know what they were. The cheerful, cursive font was unmistakable, Willow Creek Estates. Good morning, I said, my voice clear and strong. Jareth jumped. Mom! You're up early. I am, I said. I walked over to the coffee pot, poured myself a cup, and added a splash of cream. I took a sip. You're looking at retirement homes. Cassidy, ever bold, took the offensive. Maribel, we think it's for the best. It's a lovely community. They have activities. You can be around, people your own age. It's not fair for you to be so isolated here. Isolated, I repeated. Is that what you call it? Mom, Jareth pleaded, it's not like we're kicking you out. It's an assisted living facility. You need more care than we can give. The care I need? I asked, turning to face them. The care I need is respect. The care I need is not to be called deadweight in my own home. Jareth's face turned a blotchy red. Cassidy's eyes narrowed. I knew you were listening. You're always hovering. It's hard not to hover in a house I paid for, I said. The silence was instant. Cassidy scoffed. Oh, please. You gave us that money. A gift. You were just grateful we took you in. Was I? I reached into my pocket. I pulled out the folded document and placed it on the granite island, right on top of the Willow Creek Estates brochure. I wasn't grateful. I was practical. Jareth looked at the paper, confused. Cassidy, curious, picked it up. She unfolded it. I watched her face. The smugness wavered, replaced by confusion, and then by a cold, dawning horror. Her eyes darted from the legal language to the staggering sum $450,000 and then to Jareth's signature at the bottom. "Jareth," she hissed, her voice trembling. "What is this?" He took the paper from her. His hands were shaking so badly he could barely hold it. I don't remember this. Mom? What is this?" "That," I said, taking another calm sip of my coffee, "is your mortgage. The one you hold with me. The one that says you broke the contract. The bomb has been dropped." Jareth's face was as white as the kitchen cabinets. "Mom, no. This was just a formality. We were family." "Family doesn't call their mother dead weight," I replied, my voice steady. "Family doesn't plan to ship their mother off to a facility while living in the house she bought for them." Cassidy found her voice first, and it was sharp with rage. "You manipulative old woman. You tricked us. You held this over our heads for 5 years?" "I never thought I'd have to use it," I said simply. "I thought my son would protect me. I thought the love I gave would be returned. I was wrong. You," I said, pointing at Cassidy, "wanted me out. And you," I said to Jareth, "let her. You can't do this." Jareth cried, sinking into a chair. "We don't have $450,000. Where would we get that kind of money? We have Kala and Lowell. We have the twins." "You should have thought of Kala and Lowell before you decided I was a burden," I said. "You should have thought of them when you signed a legal document and then promptly forgot about it. You broke the clause, Jareth. The one about making me feel unwelcome. I'd say dead weight qualifies. This is illegal." Cassidy shouted. "This is elder abuse. We'll get a lawyer. We will fight this." "Go ahead," I said. "My lawyer's name is Trina. Her number is on the back. She's the one who drafted it. She's been waiting for your call." Cassidy's face crumpled. She knew she was trapped. The bravado dissolved, replaced by a pure, ugly panic. Jareth just sat there, his head in his hands, making a small, wounded sound. It was pathetic. "So, what now?" Jareth whispered, looking up at me, his eyes brimming with tears. You're going to make us homeless? Your own family? Your grandchildren?" I looked at him, at the man my son had become. The weakness I had once mistaken for sweetness had curdled into something I didn't recognize. "No, Jareth," I said. "I'm not making you homeless. I'm giving you an option. The same one you gave me." I paused, letting the weight of the moment settle. "You have 30 days to pay me the full principal. Find a bank, get a loan, cash out your stocks. I don't care how. You have 30 days to buy me out. And if we can't?" Jareth choked out. "If you can't," I said, picking up my coffee cup, "then the house goes on the market. I'll take my $450,000, and you can take whatever is left over, if there is anything." I walked to the sink and rinsed my cup. "You wanted to be practical, Cassidy. This is practical. 30 days. The clock is ticking." For a week, the house was a pressure cooker. Cassidy and Jareth were in a constant state of frantic, hushed arguments. They were on the phone with banks, with mortgage brokers, with lawyers. Cassidy's rage had turned into a toxic, simmering resentment. She wouldn't look at me, but I could feel her hatred like a physical force. Jareth just looked hollowed out, a ghost haunting his own expensive kitchen. I stayed in my room, packing. Not much, just one large suitcase. I was sorting through old photographs when Jareth knocked softly on my door. "Mom?" I opened it. He looked terrible. He hadn't shaved, and his eyes were red-rimmed. "Mom, can we talk? Please?" I stepped aside and let him in. He sat on the edge of my bed, the same bed he used to jump on as a little boy. I went to the bank, he said, his voice cracking. All of them. We can't get a loan. Not for that much. Our credit is terrible. I wonder why, I said flatly. They lived so far beyond their means, the designer clothes for Cassidy, the expensive cabs for the twins, the new Tesla in the driveway. That's what I need to tell you, he stammered, refusing to meet my eyes. It's worse than that. Mom. I'm so sorry. Cassidy, she lost her job. 6 months ago. She didn't tell me, she didn't tell anyone. She kept spending. I said nothing. I just waited. We used the credit cards. All of them, he confessed, the words tumbling out in a rush. And then we needed to make the minimum payments. We were drowning. He finally looked up, his face a mask of pure shame. Mom, your pension. The money you gave us every month for groceries. We didn't use it for groceries. We used it to pay the credit card interest. All of it. For almost a year. I sat down in the chair by the window. I felt cold. Not angry. Just cold. They hadn't just been ungrateful. They hadn't just been cruel. They had been stealing from me. My small pension, the money Oswin had worked 40 years to secure for me, they had used it to pay for Cassidy's secret and Jarrett's weakness. You stole from me, I whispered. We were going to pay it back, he cried, a pathetic, desperate lie. I promise, Mom, we just needed time. Time, I repeated. You needed time. So you called me dead weight and planned to put me in a home. Out of sight, out of mind. A problem you could just file away. I'm sorry, Mom. I'm so sorry. He was crying now, big, ugly sobs. I stood up. I walked to the door and opened it. Get out, Jareth. Mom, please. Get out. My voice was steel. He flinched, as if I had struck him, and stumbled out of my room. I closed the door, locked it, and finally, for the first time in this whole ordeal, I sat on my bed and I wept. I wept for the son I had lost, and for the fool I had been. The betrayal is complete. There is nothing left to save. The tears dried after an hour. They left behind a hard, clear resolve. There was no family to save here. There was no son to redeem. There was only me. I picked up my phone. My first call was to Trina, my lawyer. Trina, I said, they're not going to pay. I figured as much, Maribel, her voice was all business. Their lawyer tried to argue emotional duress. I told him to try again, in court. He hung up. So, what's the play? Sell it, I said. Put the house on the market today. We'll force the sale. Take my $450,000, take your fees, and mail me a check for the rest. I don't care what happens to them. Consider it done, Trina said. Where should I mail the check? That was the question. I looked around the beige guest room, a room I had hated for 5 years. I couldn't stay here. I had no other family, not really. But I thought of my younger sister, Naoma, who had passed away years ago. She had lived in Ohio. She had always been the adventurous one. Come to Ohio, Maribel, she'd say. It's quiet. The people are decent. You can breathe here. We had taken a road trip there once, after Oswin died. We'd driven through small towns, past rolling farmland and quiet forests. We'd stayed in a little town called Athens, near the university. It was hilly and green, and the air felt clean. It felt a world away from the high-strung, image-obsessed suburb I was currently trapped in. Ohio, I said, the word feeling strange and right on my tongue. I don't have an address yet. Just hold it for me. I'll be in touch. I hung up and made my second call. The bus station. Yes, I said to the ticketing agent. I'd like one-way ticket to Athens, Ohio. For tomorrow. Yes, a senior fare. Thank you. I hung up and opened my laptop. I didn't have much, but I had my pension, which I'd immediately rerouted to my own private account, and I had the impending sale of the house. I found a small, one-bedroom apartment for rent above a bakery in Athens. It looked clean. It had windows that faced the sun. I called the landlord and paid the deposit and first month's rent over the phone. I spent the rest of the day packing my one suitcase. I took my photos, Oswin's medal, and my good winter coat. I left everything else. I left the furniture they'd bought me, the books, the knickknacks. They were just things. They were part of a life I was finished with. That evening, a real estate agent came and hammered a for sale sign into the immaculate front lawn. Cassidy saw it from the window and let out a sound like a dying animal. I just closed my suitcase and zipped it shut. She has a ticket and a destination. The next morning, I was up at 5 a.m. My bus left at 7:30. I'd called a taxi the night before, and it was due to arrive at 6 a.m. sharp. I dressed in my warmest traveling clothes, my one suitcase standing by the door. The house was dark, but as I walked down the stairs, the lights in the kitchen clicked on. Jareth and Cassidy were both there. They looked like they hadn't slept. They looked broken. "Mom," Jareth whispered, his voice hoarse. "There's a for sale sign on our lawn." Trina called. "It's real. You're really doing this." "I am," I said, walking past them to the front door. "Where are you going?" Cassidy asked. Her voice wasn't angry anymore. It was hollow. "To a hotel?" What are you doing?" "I'm moving," I said, buttoning my coat. "To Ohio." "Ohio?" Jareth repeated, as if I'd said the moon. "Why Ohio?" "You don't know anyone there." "Mom, this is crazy. You're 78 years old. You can't just leave." "You are going to send me to Willow Creek," I reminded him. "At least in Ohio, I'll have my freedom. I won't be dead weight. I'll just be Maribel." Headlights swept across the living room window. My taxi was here. I picked up my suitcase. "No, wait." Jareth panicked, blocking the door. "Mom, please. Don't go. We'll fix this. I'll get a second job. Cassidy will work. We'll pay you back, I swear. Every penny. Just don't go." "It's not about the money anymore, Jareth," I said, looking my son in the eye. "It's about the fact that you heard your wife call me dead weight and you stayed silent. It's about the fact that you stole my pension and let me keep scrubbing your floors. The house, the money, that's just the consequence. The problem is you. It's your heart. Please," he wept, sinking to his knees, clinging to my coat. "Don't leave me." It was the most pathetic thing I had ever seen. I looked over his shoulder. The twins, Kala and Lowell, were standing at the top of the stairs, awakened by the voices. They were just children, 10 and 12, watching their father disintegrate. They looked terrified. I softened my voice, just a little. "Get up, Jareth. You're scaring your children." He looked up, saw them, and his face crumpled. I stepped around him and opened the front door. The cold morning air hit my face. "Goodbye, Jareth," I said. I looked up at the stairs. "Goodbye, Kala, Lowell." Be good. I walked out the door, rolled my suitcase down the stone pathway, and got into the waiting taxi. I didn't look back. I didn't see my son collapse in the doorway. I just told the driver, the Greyhound station, please. She's free. The hardest step is over. The bus station was cold and smelled of diesel and stale coffee. It was filled with people who looked as tired as I felt. But as I sat on the hard plastic bench, waiting for my bus to be called, I didn't feel fear. I felt light. The dead weight was gone, but it wasn't me. It was the weight of their expectations, their greed, their disrespect. I had left it all in that oversized house. The journey was long. The bus rumbled through Pennsylvania, a gray, unending highway. We stopped at brightly lit, lonely service stations in the middle of the night. I ate a pre-packaged sandwich and drank bitter coffee from a styrofoam cup. The young man sitting next to me, a college student with headphones, offered me one of his earbuds. I politely declined. I watched America pass by in a blur. I thought about Jareth. I thought about the little boy who loved dinosaurs and the man who had become a coward. I felt a pang of sadness, not for him, but for the son I thought I had. I grieved him, right there on that bus, somewhere in the dark hills of West Virginia. By the time we crossed into Ohio, the sun was rising. It was a cold, clear morning. The landscape changed. It became softer, with rolling hills and wide, open fields dusted with frost. It was beautiful. When the bus finally pulled into the small station in Athens, I was stiff, exhausted, but I was smiling. I stepped off the bus into the crisp, cold air. The town was quiet. It was the opposite of the bustling, angry suburb I'd left. I got a taxi to the address I'd written down. The driver was a kind older man who helped me with my bag. "Moving here, ma'am?" he asked. "I am," I said, surprised at how true it sounded. He dropped me off in front of a 3-story brick building. On the ground floor was a shop with a cheerful blue sign, the Crooked Man Bakery. My apartment was on the 2nd floor, with its own entrance up a set of sturdy wooden stairs. I let myself in. It was small. Just a living room, a tiny kitchen, a bedroom, and a bathroom. But the walls were painted a soft yellow, and the morning sun was pouring through the large, clean windows. It smelled faintly of sugar and bread from the bakery below. I walked over to the window and looked down at the little street. People were walking by, smiling, saying hello to each other. I set my suitcase down. I was home. Maribel has found her sanctuary. 6 months passed. It was spring. My little apartment was filled with plants. Trina had been as good as her word. The house sold, though for less than Jareth and Cassidy had hoped. My $450,000 was wired to my new bank account, and the remaining pittance was sent to them. They had moved into a small, run-down apartment complex across town. I knew this because Jareth had tried to call me, twice. I didn't answer. My life in Athens was quiet, and it was my own. I got a part-time job. Not because I needed the money, but because I wanted to. I worked at the library, in the children's section. I read stories to the toddlers on Tuesday and Thursday mornings. They called me Miss Maribel. Their mothers would stop and chat, asking me for advice on their gardens or their baking. I made friends. I joined a bridge club. The owners of the bakery downstairs, a young couple named Ben and Kala, a coincidence that made me smile, would bring me fresh bread every morning. I, in turn, would bake them my famous lemon ricotta cookies, a recipe Oswin had loved. I was no one's burden. I was a neighbor. I was a friend. I was, for the first time in a long time, just Maribel. One rainy afternoon in April, I was checking my mail when I saw it. A letter. The handwriting was messy, achingly familiar. It was from Jareth. It had taken him 6 months to find my address, and my heart hammered as I held the thin envelope. I almost threw it away. But I took it upstairs, made a cup of tea, and sat by my sunny window. I opened it. "Dear Mom," it began. "I don't know if you'll read this. I don't deserve it if you don't. I have been in therapy. I am trying to understand why I did what I did. Why I was so weak. Why I let Cassidy's voice become louder than my own. There is no excuse. I know that. We lost the house. We lost everything. Cassidy and we're not together anymore. She left last month. She said I was a spineless failure. I guess she was right. I'm working 2 jobs now, trying to pay off the debt we racked up. The twins are with me. It's hard. Lowell misses you. He asks about his grandma. Mom, I don't expect you to forgive me. I don't. But I want you to know that I am sorry. I am sorry I stole from you. I am sorry I didn't protect you. I am sorry I was a bad son. I live with that every single day. I hope, wherever you are happy. You deserve it. Love, Jareth. I read the letter 3 times. I saw the water spots on the paper where his tears had fallen. I felt a familiar, ancient ache in my chest. Jareth has finally apologized, but is it too late? In the final chapter, Maribel makes her choice. I folded the letter and put it in the locked box, right next to Oswin's medal. I didn't answer it. Not yet. Maybe not ever. Forgiveness, I was learning, wasn't a single event. It was a landscape, and I was still deciding where to build my house. The next day was a Tuesday. Story time. I walked the 2 blocks to the library, the air fresh with the smell of rain and lilac. The children were already there, sitting on the colorful carpet, waiting for me. Miss Maribel, a little girl shouted, running up to hug my legs. Hello, sweetie, I laughed, patting her head. I sat in the big wooden rocking chair and opened the book. Today, I announced, we're going to read about a very brave rabbit who goes on a very big adventure. As I read, my voice strong and clear, I looked at their small, upturned faces. They were so full of trust, so new. They weren't born with greed or cruelty. That was something they had to be taught. And I thought of Calla and Lowell, my grandchildren. They were victims in this, too. That evening, I didn't write to Jareth. But I did go to the post office. I bought a large, padded envelope. I went home and baked a batch of lemon ricotta cookies. I packed them in a tin. I also enclosed a book, the one about the brave rabbit. I addressed the package not to Jareth, but to Master Lowell Hatcher. I wrote a small note, "Hello, my dear. I hear you miss your grandma. I miss you, too. I hope you like these cookies. Read this book for your sister. Be brave. Love, Grandma Maribel." I sealed the box and mailed it. I didn't include a return address. I walked home as the sun was setting, painting the Ohio sky in shades of orange and purple. The smell of fresh bread was wafting up from the bakery. My friends from the bridge club waved to me from the cafe across the street. I waved back. I climbed the stairs to my little apartment, unlocked my door, and stepped inside. It was warm, safe, and it was mine. I made myself a cup of tea and sat by the window, watching the stars come out over the quiet, decent town. I was not dead weight. I was a woman. I was a baker, a storyteller, a friend. I was Maribel. And for the first time in my life, I was truly, completely, and unequivocally free. Maribel found her peace, not in revenge, but in freedom. If you believe in the power of starting over, subscribe to our channel for more stories of empowerment and strength.